This is the server that hosts the Microsoft Exchange service. And when we're in the Server Manager, we really don't see anything that would indicate that Exchange is installed on this machine. We do have IIS, which could indicate that Exchange is running on this machine, or it could just indicate that a website is running on this machine. I did pin the Exchange Toolbox to the taskbar, but there's really not a whole lot you can do from this particular Microsoft Management Console. And even if we were to do a quick search of Exchange on this particular machine, there'll be a few things that come up, but one is the Exchange Toolbox, and the other is going to be the Exchange Management Shell, which is a customized version of Powershell used to manage Exchange. Exchange is managed for the most part from a web browser, and we're going to look into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to, as a brief introduction, show you this. I'm not going to reinstall Exchange, it's already running on this machine. But let's look at Microsoft's TechNet site and see what we would do to install Exchange for the first time. In order to install Microsoft Exchange 2013, there are a number of steps. The best thing to do is to go right to the source. Microsoft has many good articles that help with the installation, implementation, and troubleshooting of their products. Exchange can be installed on any server running Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 2 and up, but we're going to look at how to install Exchange on a Windows Server 2012 since that's what I'm running. There are basically three main stages to the install of Microsoft Exchange 2013. The first stage is to prepare Active Directory if you're installing Exchange 2013 for the first time in your domain. The next step is to install the Exchange Server 2013 prerequisites, and then the final step would be to run the setup, and that can be accomplished either attended or unattended. We're going to look at the attended installation through the wizard, through the setup wizard. There are a series of requirements for Active Directory preparation to be successful. The Schema Master role must be running, like I said, Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 2 or later. There has to be at least one global catalog server per site that Exchange will be installed on. At least one domain controller per site. The forest functional level must be set to Server 2003 or higher. And there needs to be accounts with schema admins, domain admins, enterprise admin permissions in order to run Exchange setup. You can run, like I said, from the shell, and there are a few commands that you have to run from PowerShell. There is the preparing the Active Directory, installing the RSAT feature. There is a PowerShell command for that, and then also installing Exchange roles. And there is this big long command that copy and paste and put in order to install the Exchange roles via PowerShell. Of course, you're going to need a copy of Microsoft Exchange. You can download that from here. Another one of the prerequisites would be the Unified Communications Manager API 4.0. You would, again, once you've downloaded it, you follow the prompts on the wizard and follow that through. Like I said, you have to prepare your Active Directory and your schema. There are several PowerShell commands to do that. One thing I didn't see on this page that I noticed when I installed Exchange, when I ran the wizard, the first thing that it asked me was whether or not I wanted to check for updates. It's always a good idea to check for updates. It took a few minutes to do that, but I think it's important to check for updates. The other thing, as I scrolled through this site, that I noticed was missing was the end user license agreement. And you'll probably see that screen, and you can read the details of it. The first screen that they're showing is the introduction screen, which gives you an overview of what has changed since the last implementation or the last version of Exchange. The next screen you're going to get is the recommended settings. I would follow the recommended settings and click next. The next screen you'll see is the server role selection. So if this is the first server you're installing, Microsoft recommends that you install the Mailbox server role first. This can be either Mailbox only server or a Mailbox client access server. Now when I installed it, I didn't have any problem. I installed both those roles at the same time on the same machine. There was not an issue with that. The next step is going to verify that you have enough disk space and to either accept the default path or choose a different one. I would accept the default path. If there's no existing Exchange organization in Active Directory and you haven't already prepared Active Directory for Exchange, you will be prompted to enter an Exchange organization name, which is this next step here. So it's just as TechNet said, if you didn't, or if you did already complete this in step 4, you won't see this page. So enter your organization. The next screen is a little bit goofy. It's your malware protection settings. When installing the Mailbox server role, you're given the option to disable malware protection. If you disable it now, you can always enable it again later. I would recommend not disabling it, and that's what it's asking. Do you want to disable it? And you say no, you want to keep it going. So the next step, the wizard will go through a readiness check, and if this is not the first server you're installing and there is no send connector defined for outbound email, then you may see a warning, but you can still proceed with the server installation. It takes some time for this to paint across, and you'll see the next step is the setup progress. And as long as all the prerequisites have passed, this will paint across. The entire process for installing Exchange takes about 60 minutes. This probably takes up the majority of that 60 minutes. It's a fairly lengthy process, but you may want to go do something else while you wait. So once it's completed, the wizard will show you this final window, and you can click Finish at this point and go ahead and start exploring some of the new tools. And Exchange Server 2013 no longer uses the MMC-based management console that I mentioned before that people are familiar with in previous versions. Instead, the management console has been changed to a web-based management portal called the Exchange Administration Center. And we're going to take a look at that a little bit later. Here I am back on my domain controller DC1, which has DNS running. In order to receive incoming mail, we have to have a MX record configured. So we're going to go to the DNS Management Console. And I've already added it, but I just want to show you what that looks like. If we go over here to my forward lookup zone, we have an MX record here. And we can look at how it's configured. And it's configured as mail.anishnabimoin.biz. And the fully qualified domain name of the server is actually the name of my second server, which is dc2exchange.anishnabimoin.biz. It's fairly simple to configure this record. Now, this is my internal DNS, and I also had to configure a DNS record on a public-facing DNS out on the internet. But this will work for mail within the organization. The mail won't go out on the internet. The mail will stay within my domain. Again, DNS comes into play, but this time the lookup is slightly different. The sending mail server will look up the MX record in DNS by following a sequence along these lines. First, it'll look up the authoritative name servers for anishna-bimoin.biz. Second, it will query the anishna-bimoin.biz name servers for the MX record. And third, it will look up the names of the MX record in DNS to get their IP addresses. If your organization receives email directly, then your MX record would point to the public IP address for your firewall or internet-facing email server. For example, an Edge transport server, which we're not using but is highly recommended by Microsoft. So here we are in the Microsoft Exchange Admin Center. This replaces the MMC from previous versions. From here we can manage our Exchange network. We can add mailboxes, assign groups, we can migrate other users, we can assign permissions. The first thing that you need to do once Exchange has been installed, you need to create a send connector. I already have a send connector set up. You can always add more by pressing the plus. You can edit the one you have with a pencil. You can delete. This is a very powerful interface. There are many things that can be configured here. You can configure public folders. You can set permissions for different user roles, admin roles, web outlook, app policies. Very powerful interface. So once you've installed Exchange, it's a good idea to explore this management console, get familiar with the different settings that can be changed and enabled. Like I said, this is a very powerful way to manage your Exchange organization. This is Microsoft's Exchange Outlook web app. This is a way that users can access their email, calendars, tasks, various applications that are provided by Exchange. A user also has the ability to use Outlook, the desktop Outlook application. I'm going to go ahead and sign into my mailbox. For those of you who may have never seen this, it's pretty straightforward, especially in Internet Explorer. It really hasn't changed over the years. Now it looks a little bit different when you log in via Microsoft Edge, but it still has the same functionality. You can manage mail from here, calendar, contacts. As I said, it hasn't really changed much over the years, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. That concludes Part 3, Network Infrastructure, with an overview of Microsoft Exchange. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.